Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gaming Banter with David and Ryan, episode 4. And today we have another one of our writers with us, which is why this is going to get a little confusing because his name is also David, specifically Davd Grue. So I'm going to try to refer to him as Grue, and David Darnauer will become Double D, so this should be fun. But anyways, hand it over so everybody can do their introduction. So, Double D.
Um, Hello. um, Wait, what's that? I don't think I have an introduction. That's it. Hello.
All right, Grue.
Hello. I don't have an introduction either. I'll call
You
him
just,
something next
just
time.
Do you
yeah.
do writing for the site? Is that right? He already said that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I'm a writer for the site. I tend to focus on Nintendo games, MMOs, RPGs, third-person adventure games, stuff like that.
Mhm. You played a little bit of Halo too, right, in the past?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I like my shooters to be more sci-fi, personally.
Okay. So would you say that your primary genre is sci-fi, fantasy,
Probably
or
first, number one, probably be fantasy. Number two, sci-fi. Yeah.
very cool, very cool. So all-time favorite movie then?
All-time
Hmm.
favorite movie. We'll go with Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah, that's a good choice for. I guess
Fellowship.
that's okay. Fellowship.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of The Hobbit? Because that was kind of.
Uh, I actually really like The Hobbit. I don't know about them splitting it up into three different films.
Hmm.
I think that's a bit much. The book isn't that long. But I really enjoyed The Hobbit. Thought it was really well done because I loved the book. So,
Very cool. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Our big topic, our monster topic, is going to be on what we think is going to be the biggest game for professional gaming, or which one will make the most professional gamers. Specifically, there's a lot of tournaments going on this right now around StarCraft 2, Heart of the Swarm, League of Legends, and Dota 2. So we'll talk about that later on in the show, and if you want, you can fast forward. But for those of you watching live, you can't. Anyways, so first question that we have is for Xbox One, they just announced that the game Below is not going to be a exclusive title forever. It's actually going to be moving to. They have the ability to move to cross-console anytime they want after a certain period of time. So,
Hmm.
Double D, what do you think this means for Xbox?
Um, it's interesting. It's interesting that they kind of pushed for that ability and that Xbox wasn't as tight with it. I felt like Xbox tends to, or Microsoft in general tends to want to cling to its rights and exclusivities on things. But yeah, it's all very interesting. I'm interested to see when everything releases how it's going to go because yeah, definitely PlayStation and Microsoft are taking very separate approaches, and like we'll talk about coming up, some of the different things Microsoft is willing to paint themselves as not very pro game or much more about our money than our best interest, and whether that'll pay off and they'll be able to use that maybe that extra money and that direction to produce a better product for the gamers. People will still end up being happy at the end, even if they kind of make us pay more for it. If it's a better product, I guess it could be good. But if it ends up being a relatively equal product and PlayStation's a lot more generous and flexible with it, it could definitely take a different swing. So I'm interested to see how it all finally plays out in the end.
yeah, I think this has a lot to do with Microsoft's image. With the 360, you got a lot of indie developers complaining about how restrictive Microsoft was, how much it costs, how hard it was for them to patch. So, and this time around, they're really trying to be more indie friendly. And so I think this is part of that. They're saying, yeah, you can develop on our system and you'll get our big Xbox Live audience, but you're not going to be as tied down. You can also go to other systems as well. So I think this is partly for their image.
So, I mean, what do you guys think in terms of security? Because, I mean, for me, being an Xbox Live subscriber and not having owned a PlayStation since PlayStation 2, I saw the PSN breaches and all that stuff, and to me, that just is scary. I'd rather play on a system that's more secure necessarily than all of that. So I mean, do you think that Sony's approach will come through, or does security still concern you all?
Uh, it is interesting to me, like, yeah, whenever people like to think that you don't pay for what you get for, and people like to find this the cheapest deal and assume that they'll get just as good as the more expensive deal, or even I think our culture leans towards go and buy the cheapest product, understanding that there's a 50-50 chance it'll break, but you can return it. So people aren't looking for quality that'll last. They just know if it breaks, they can return it and get one that did work, and the $10, $50 difference in the purchase is worth their time to go back and return it, and things like that. So definitely security-wise and just anything, PlayStation seems to be taking a less money-based approach, maybe more pro-gamer approach in the sense that they aren't trying to restrict as much from us and let us share and things. But if it means they can't make the money to pay the cost of good security, and instead we have to change our credit cards because somebody gets our numbers or things like that, like somewhere there's got to be cutbacks if they're not as money-focused as Microsoft. Or are they cutting back somewhere else that, in the end we'd prefer they didn't? So that is a tricky thing because I don't know what goes on behind the doors, and how much people are being paid for security in one side or the other.
What do you think, Grue?
Yeah, that breach was huge for PlayStation. It lasted a really long time. It looked terrible, so I think they know that if there's another, security breach like that with the PS4, it's going to look really bad. And so I'm certain they're doing everything that they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. Microsoft has a strong track record with security. I don't think there's been something anywhere close to what the PlayStation Network went through.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for me, looking at that whole entire system and everything that happened, and I don't know if I'm trying to remember, PlayStation Network originally started off as free, if I remember right. So then they started charging later on. Do you remember?
It's still free. There is the PS Plus right now, but it's completely optional. You can play all your online games for free. The PS Plus gets you certain free games every month, as well as discounts on games that come out. So right now on the PS3, it's all free.
Okay, and I'll have to do some more research on it because I was under the impression that with them moving to the next-gen consoles, that it was going to be moving towards a more Xbox Live Gold membership kind of system where you're going to have to pay to play online. But
yeah, for the PS4, it will be like that. It'll be a lot like Xbox Live is now.
Okay. So they're coming together and everything like that. And I think honestly, for me, I'm looking to the future and saying, okay, prove to me that. Sony proved to me that your security is good. And, maybe 6 to 7 months from now, I'll get a PlayStation 4. And then I'm saying to Microsoft, prove to me that you're going to have exclusive titles. And I mean, this goes for both of them, actually. Prove to me that you're going to have exclusive titles that are worth paying that the extra fees and having and they're not doing the always online anymore as much, I think. But it's all so confusing and changing so many times that the messages are just getting mixed. So I guess for me, I'll just have to wait until everything comes out to make a decision and just watch from above. But yeah, the fact that they're losing not losing, but in theory losing another exclusive title tells me that, yeah, there's Titanfall, yeah, there's all these great games that are coming out for Xbox One, but if it's all available on PC, I have an awesome PC, and I have a firewall that protects all my stuff, and it's free. So, prove to me that I need a console, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I definitely tend to lean towards PC gaming. There's only a handful of games that get me in front of a console. And, yeah, so it is a tricky thing, especially to want to go pay. You can get actually pretty, not a crazy gaming PC or something, but if you already got a monitor and keyboard and stuff, if you just want to upgrade towers for the same cost as getting a console, you can get some nice new stuff for your tower. So it is hard to say, do I want to go get this non-upgradable thing that in 3 years I might want to replace, where you can get some upgrades for your tower and then piece by piece upgrade it some more if you want to. I've heard from a lot of people. A lot of people are very hesitant to hop on, like, buy it as soon as it comes out, wait in lines. Like, I think there's definitely always been the two crowds: the people who want the product as soon as it comes out, and the people who are like, oh, let me see if half of them die for some reason, like, or if the accounts are getting hacked, or let them work the bugs out on the kind of whatever comes after beta test, the release
Yeah.
test.
Do you want Red Ring of Death or do you want security breaches?
Gotta pick one.
Pick.
I've heard many people refer to it as like almost like voting in politicians and stuff like that. Like, they're both making a lot of statements that may or may not come true, and you really just have to wait till you see them in office or actually released to really know what it's going to look like. And then you're most likely kind of, in some ways, picking the worst of two evils, and that there's going to be negative sides to both. But in the end, I'm sure you get on there and you play some games with your friends, you'll be happy you did. And what are you going to spend the money on? Investing for your future? Buy a console. That's my pitch.
What do you think, Grue?
Well, I don't mean to steer the show, but this really ties into another topic we're going to discuss, which is about the PlayStation 4 and if they're operating at a loss on that. But the big question there is why buy a console? And I think the only real reason, unless you're someone who really likes to just get new gadgets and stuff, you have to have the latest iPhone, you have to have the latest tablet. But if you're just a gamer, the real reason to buy a console is for exclusive games. Something that you can only get on that console. And so personally, I'm going to wait a little bit on either console and see, what games come out after launch, because the launch lineups for both don't impress me.
Yeah, and I mean, to kind of echo that, the PlayStation 4, I don't know if anyone has seen this, but basically they made a commitment that they were going to pay the various people in the U.S. in U.S. dollars, which, because the U.S. dollar is rising against the yen, that effectively means they're losing money. So there's a lot of questions as to whether or not they can remain profitable. Now, within that same article that I was reading, there was a bit talking about how, 70% of their sales come from other locations in the U.S. So I think it's a delicate balance. And honestly, it's like you said, Grue. If you don't have exclusive titles, then why bother? If you don't have the Halos out there, and I remember one of the big exclusive titles was Final Fantasy, which that was my big, dilemma last generation. Well, I want to play Final Fantasy games, but I also want to play Halo games, and Halo's on Xbox and Final Fantasy's on PlayStation. I don't know which to choose, and then inevitably now it's on both, so I don't have to choose. And who knows if eventually it'll come out on PC and I don't have to have a console at all. But yeah.
The one thing I think, because I like a lot of strategy or like RPG games. Like, I lean towards games that are actually easier to play on the PC as well, which is another reason I'm more of a PC gamer. But like, I was just thinking about like George's segments he's been posting on Tekken and stuff like that. I would not want to play Tekken on a PC. I'm sure you could, but like, there's a lot of games that are like Twitch and like moving and stuff like that like on a keyboard would just be not as fun. And so yeah, I definitely think based on what games you're really drawn to as well. Yeah, and also the mobility. I was thinking about it because we used to play Gears of War a lot. We'd have a lot of like kind of LAN party Gears of War stuff, and people would bring their Xbox over. And that's way easier than when we have like guys not on Wednesday and we play StarCraft and people have to bring their towers over. Laptops can fix that and stuff like that. But yeah, they are kind of consoles are a little bit more developed for mobility as long as you have multiple TVs at a house. If you have to bring a TV along, it's not quite as easy.
Well, if you look historically at consoles, they usually operate at a loss when they first come out, and the console hardware doesn't become profitable for years, like 5 years after launch. We saw that with the original Xbox. We saw that with the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 actually was really bad when it came out, and even though it was so expensive, so they weren't pushing the numbers, and it was still, I think, maybe $100 loss per console sold. So what they really make their money on is the games. So it all comes back to having good exclusive games on your system. So that's what's going to make them money.
Well, and I think it took 5 years for Sony to actually come out of a loss for the PlayStation, just because it was so expensive. And I don't even know that number for Microsoft because of the whole entire thing that went on with the Red Ring of Death. So I mean, it's just
that cost them a lot as well.
But anyways, let's move on to the next topic. So next one we have is also a big news item, and that's Microsoft removing family subscriptions, and they're going to basically say if you have a family subscription on X date, I think it's August 17th, is that correct? On that date, they're going to modify everything to be individual accounts. So there's no sharing accounts, none of that anymore. There's not going to be one big price. You're stuck with an individual account. And I know that, Grue, you have several friends that have family subscriptions, so maybe you can talk on that.
Yeah. So what the family subscription is you pay one price. It's a larger price. I forget exactly what it is. But then you get multiple accounts that you can set up for. It doesn't have to be your family, obviously. Friends, anyone who's kind of living in your area, because you are limited to the number of Xboxes that you can put it on. And so what's going to happen is that they're all going to get their individual ones, and then they'll have to keep paying on their own instead of paying the reduced rate for the multiple accounts. I think the reason they're doing this is because they're tying so much of their stuff with the Xbox One to that Xbox Live account, and tying that account to a certain console. And so it's definitely easier for them to do it this way, and then to try to integrate the family plan system into their new infrastructure.
Yeah, that would just be insane, trying to figure out a way to ensure that people that are on multiple Xboxes under the same subscription don't get access to the other games. Because I mean, that's in essence what they're doing. They're trying to make sure that me and my 6 friends that are on the family plan don't just buy one copy of Call of Duty or one copy of Destiny or pick a game. And I mean, I understand why they're doing it from a business perspective, and I think it makes sense. But this is just another in the long list of anti kind of gamers. It's like we're going to make more money off of you, essentially what they're saying. So what do you think, Double D?
Yeah, it is interesting. I never used a family account, and so yeah, it interests me because I feel like Nintendo and Wii U is more family stuff. But yeah, there's not a ton of it, particularly like Xbox Live content that I think is big for younger families. Like if you were, a dad and you had 3 kids and none of them had incomes, and you wanted to all be able to play together online, and you needed to be able to save money to do that because you already had so many other expenses being, the provider for a household. You wouldn't, go online and play shooters with your 4-year-old, your 10-year-old, and your 12-year-old, maybe a 12-year-old. But so you don't need you wouldn't be using it. I think people would use it more when you have I've lived in houses with 5 guys and stuff, when you have a bunch of guys with Xboxes, or even I could see people at college dorms linking up with each other and being like, hey, if we're all on the same floor, let's all get this and save money. And so overall, it's not allowing people who couldn't normally afford it to get on board, like families and stuff, and provide it so all their 3 children could have their all separate Xboxes used, which is why grocery stores have coupons and things. It's to provide avenues for people who wouldn't normally be able to necessarily get on board with something to do it, and then for people who had more disposable income. Most single mid-20s people don't clip coupons, but moms do, and it lets both groups get on board. It's not making them money. It's not bringing in new accounts to allow families to have this. It's just allowing people who would already buy it anyways to buy it at a cheaper price. So I get why they're doing it, and I feel like it probably won't affect a ton of people, especially in the sense that it won't make people have to actually say, we can't afford this anymore, because it is people with individual incomes using it for a discount, and then if they really have to make the sacrifice, they'll pay for the separate subscriptions. But it's not making them lose business over it.
Yeah. Well, so let's move on to our final topic, because this one's going to take a while, and that's the question of which game out there represents a bigger opportunity for money for pro gamers. What is going to be the end-all be-all? We have StarCraft 2 in Korea, where it has its own television channel, and there's still a huge Brood War following for that as well. League of Legends or Dota 2, and then there's also several others, but let's throw that over to Grue first, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, we probably should have talked about this first so we don't all choose the same one. But I definitely think that League of Legends has the most potential, especially right now. Professional gamers and even most professional, internet personalities, people who make YouTube videos or stream for a living, they have multiple income streams. So they make tons of different videos for their YouTube channel, but they're also streaming, and they monetize that. And they might also have a part-time job. So you want to really diversify as much as possible if you're using video games as your main source of income. So I think League of Legends still has the most potential because it's always #1 on Twitch. Even if there's no tournament, even if there's tournaments for other games, it's still #1. Obviously, they have their own tournaments that Riot runs, as well as some other leagues also run tournaments. So there's just so many different opportunities to make money with that game if you're good enough.
What do you think, Double D?
Yeah, it is very interesting. I looked up a bunch of stats on it and stuff like that. Apparently, from what I was seeing, and I looked at a handful of sites and got a little bit of information that could be wrong. But the #1 highest earning or highest paid gamer actually plays Quake shooter games. So this is highest paying game is Painkiller. And yeah, he's an American shooter, which I would have thought, either Dota and all the other games, or almost all the other people who make a lot of money are Dota, StarCraft, or League of Legends. And it's also interesting because they say he's highest paid. He's made $240,000 as of whenever this is posted off of awards, off of winning championships and stuff. But he's made $454,000 just off of gaming. And even if you search, it's Fatality, which is spelled with one in there instead of a I. If you search his name, he's got Game Gear for sale, his own mouse's design, in energy drinks, so different stuff. So he's really capitalizing on it. So I think, yeah, just like athletes, with esports now, most athletes make a ton of their money not just because they get high salaries, which they do, but also from endorsements from Nike and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the money comes from also if you're out there and you're starting to do well, figure out how to endorse it. I think even if you're if you're a Masters player in StarCraft, start posting some videos, offer lessons or tutorial videos, on YouTube. Start capitalizing on it if you have the skill, and if you're interested in having a skill, learn from the people who have it and start moving forward with it, It definitely takes commitment, whatever game you're gonna do. You don't kind of fall into it. But back kind of to the original question, yeah, definitely I think Dota or League of Legends, and I'd probably say League of Legends. StarCraft is a much higher skill cap. It's just, I would say, a much harder game. You're controlling, 50, 100, up to 200 units, and economy and stuff, versus one unit. And so I think it's easier to kind of get into. And then I think it's kind of, they're both fun to watch. I find they're both fun to watch, but I think it's easier to tell what's going on in a League of Legends game. And so you can even look better on your YouTube channel or your stream versus without somebody like, Day9 or Husky, explaining what's going on in your StarCraft game. People might not want to watch it because it's not as exciting sometimes. I get excited by both, but I could see getting more excited about focusing on one hero killing other heroes versus why one guy's running a couple Zergs here and a couple of Zergs there. But yes, I vote League of Legends as well. Although it is interesting because less people seem to be playing Dota, so potentially you could rise in that league quicker. But I've not played Dota actually. Only,
Yeah, I know. From my experience, is that Dota. I mean, Dota's been beta, right? So it's only recently kind of come out, and so Dota, I think, has a lot of room, and it's got its name going for it, since that was kind of the original name was Defense of the Ancients, and this is kind of the formalized version of it. And I think that both Dota and League of Legends have a lot of potential, because they have so many people that are playing and so many people that are interested in playing. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is who's willing to watch. Um, yeah, one of the big things about professional sports today is that everyone can play it, right? But not everybody enjoys watching it. Like, I played basketball and I was really good at basketball, but for some reason I just can't get into watching other people playing basketball. It's just not my thing. So I mean, for me, I'm gonna go with StarCraft just because you have the community in Korea that has embraced StarCraft as kind of a mainstream thing, and you need that community to embrace. League of Legends is always going to be awesome, and I think it's going to be high up there, and it has a lot of potential to get there. But I think in the immediate future, I'm going to go with StarCraft 2, just because you have so many people that are watching television shows in Korea of StarCraft 2 players, and there's tournaments that are going on all the time. And I don't know, I've played both, and I just am a lot more entranced by StarCraft 2. Also, I'm better at StarCraft 2, so that's part of it. But so I'm going to go with StarCraft 2 on that one. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think a big part of this, with what you were talking about, getting people to watch, I think a big part of this is barrier of entry. I think League of Legends definitely has the lowest barrier to entry. First of all, it's free, so you don't have to pay for it to get into it. Also, it's really easy to follow. You can spectate a League of Legends game and pretty easily understand what's going on. And part of it's also the art design. The characters stand out. If you look at a screen and they have 50 Zerglings and 25 Hydralisks and some other units in there, if you're looking as a spectator, you might not be able to see, differentiate all of that. But if you're looking at League of Legends, you're only really seeing at most 10 characters on a screen at a time, and they're all so unique that it's very easy to tell what's going on. And so a lot of people, find that more enjoyable to watch.
I'm looking at the website that kind of lists different incomes for gamers. And again, I don't know when it was last updated. But League of Legends, a professional League of Legends player doesn't pop up till number 89 of top paid. The first one says Painkiller, which is like I was telling you about. StarCraft Brood Wars, which is probably some playing on the old TV channels because I don't think as many people play it, or on the China channels. Then it's actually Dota, Brood Wars, StarCraft 2, Dota, and Dota. So that's the top 10. So actually 5 out of the top 10 are Dota 2, which is interesting because, yeah, again, I'm not very informed on Dota. I haven't played it. And those are all, of course, in other countries too, so it could be a lot bigger in other countries. I wonder how the transition is. I know a ton of people who play League, and have played League since beta and stuff like that. But I wonder if it has a much higher following in America, and then other things kind of dwarf it when you get out of the country. And it's just, I'm not as informed on like overseas goings-ons.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're almost out of time here, so we're going to do one final thought for everybody. I'll go first and just say, I guess, with regards to this question, I think it's a crapshoot. I mean, it could be literally anything. It's like David was saying, or Double D was saying earlier. It really comes down to, you're in multiple different things. You're diversified. You're playing a lot of games. You're going to have your really good game, but then it's how you market yourself. Are we going to get to the days where people are making the same amount of money as like professional athletes? Probably not, because that's so much money. But I think from a marketing perspective, it could definitely start rivaling some of the minimum salaries in those leagues. Over to you, Double D.
Yeah, I think like as far as like what the easiest one to become a professional gamer in for you is whatever one you feel most excited about and are best at. If you think that it's easier to become a professional player at StarCraft, or you can make the most money there, but you suck at StarCraft but are pretty good at League, if you're good at basketball, don't try to take on football. I think Michael Jordan didn't. He do baseball and basketball, and baseball was not his thing.
Yeah.
So definitely pick the one you're good at and pursue that. And then, it is very much kind of a entrepreneurial thing right now because there are a lot less coaches. There aren't scouts out there trying to recruit you to teams as much like they may be doing it. But you got to go out there. You got to convince yourself to play. Your high school gym's not going to, make you a better football player. Well, make you a better football player is not going to make you a better League of Legends player. So it is a lot on you. You have to be driven to do it, and you have to figure out how you can publicize yourself and make money off of it, whether it be streaming on like Twitch or posting on YouTube or doing some casting or doing some coaching for other people or however you want to start making money off of that. It's entrepreneurial right now. There's not people who are going to pick you up and make you good.
What do you think, Grue?
Yeah, I think it's still a really young industry that we're talking about, this whole professional gaming thing. And really, yeah, there's no guidelines into it. There's a couple structured leagues. The developers run a couple tournaments, but you can get into it pretty much any way you want. You can be big making guides and monetizing your YouTube channels. You could be a shoutcaster. A lot of games have a huge player base, but not a lot of really good announcers / shoutcasters, so that's definitely an opportunity to get into it. If you have a big personality, and you really know what's going on, but maybe you're not that, not that good at the game, you could definitely get into it with that. I think as far as money goes, it's going to depend a lot on sponsors. How much are these companies willing to invest into these players? How much are they getting back in advertising? I know a lot of professional gamers will do product reviews on their channels, and they'll get a lot of free stuff from that. And yeah, when these players go to tournaments, they'll wear shirts. It's kind of like European soccer. They have all these advertisements on them and logos and stuff. So how long is that going to continue? Is that going to grow? Are we going to see more companies? Because right now it's really only tech companies, companies that make computers and mice, and a company that makes gaming glasses, believe it or not, I've seen. I'm not sure how that
before
works.
as well. They make your eyes less tired. They block.
Yeah.
They're like the yellow tent or whatever, and there's also the energy drinks too. So
yeah, definitely that. But are we going to see more? Are we going to see Coke maybe endorse, or American Apparel or some clothing company? Are they going to start getting into this? So that'll be interesting to watch.
Well, great. Well, guys, thanks for joining us this week, and next week we'll hopefully have our guest star come in. And thank you for watching, and have a wonderful week. Thanks, everybody.